Okay, my full name is Richard Eugene Clark, Sr. And I go by Gene because that's what my grandmother preferred to call me. As far as coming to Haines, I had a family here. My grandfather was stationed at the post here many eons ago. My mother's first generation, she was born in the post hospital over here. I'm second generation. I was born in the White Pass Hospital in Skagway. When my grandparents passed away, I went to live with Marge and Cliff Matthews. And Cliff is my uncle. And they moved here in 1959. I spent a winter going to school here. Then I went to Sitka for a year. And from Sitka, I went to the interior. My foster mother became a teacher for the state of Alaska, and she taught in the villages. And I spent many years growing up in the interior. Then I got drafted by the Army, spent a year in the Army, and spent 2.5 years, re-enlisted, spent 2.5 years on the front lines of Vietnam. When I got out of the Army, my foster brother was dying of cancer, and I had family here, and I came back here, and this is where I've been ever since.
You said you were born in Skagway.
Yeah.
Did you grow up there, or did...
Till I was 12 years old. I was born there May 1st, 1948, in the territory of Alaska.
What was it like being drafted for the Army?
Oh, terrible, terrible. I spent all my life up until that point in Alaska. I didn't know what a freeway was, never seen one. Can you imagine a young man going to the lower 48 for the first time in his life at the age of 19 and seeing all this traffic? Pretty scary for a young guy.
What year did you move to Haines? And, like, you made it your permanent home?
1972.
I hear that you have a nickname, Slippery. Can you tell us about that?
Now, where did you get that information? Okay, I used to be the oiler out at the mill. And the oiler, or the grease monkey as we call them, their jobs is to see that the bearings get grease, the chains get oiled, and we used to carry 5-gallon buckets for the chains. And we'd go to a certain place and fill up the buckets with oil. Well, you always get a little oil run over. I don't care how fast they are, it always runs over the side of the bucket. Well, where does that oil go? It goes down to the bottom of the bucket and it collects on the bottom, even though it's not dripping and running all over. And the foreman stopped me one day. And I set the buckets down on the metal decking at the sawmill. And guess what they left? They left a spot of oil. And he slipped and fell down, and ever since then he deemed me Slippery, so that's where the nickname comes from.
What was your most, how would you say, interesting job you've had since you lived in Haines?
I couldn't say. I've done a lot.
What was your favorite? Like, what did you enjoy most?
With that? Oh, I guess removing snow in the wintertime. That's where I make my money. In fact, if you call me on my cell phone and I don't answer, the phone will answer for me and it says the happy little snowplow.
Cool. Is there any question?
Gene, I know that you've been here a long time and you've made a real effort to stay in Haines, and you've had a lot of different occupations in order to do so. Just can you kind of give us a list of what all you've done since you moved to town?
Well, let's see, I worked at the sawmill. First I worked at, I don't, you kids won't remember, but he will. You remember I.B. Hauser? I worked with him right away. He was kind of the town character. He was grocery store owner, and he started out with a restaurant. And I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but on the matchbooks, he had a picture of an old prospector. He had a cowboy hat, kind of a floppy hat, and he was dragging and it said something, going to so-and-so's for a meal.
Is it the Strawberry Cafe?
No. His cafe was right across the street from where Hauser's is now in the old liquor store, and he got tired of making meals for people. He said it was a lot easier just to sell them the groceries so they could go home and make their own meals instead of standing over a hot stove. And he was the town mayor. He was fire chief at one time. He had his fingers in a lot of things. He was kind of, I do know that he was very good at, when we would get our paychecks at the mill, he would go to the bank. He knew exactly when payday was. And he would draw out enough money so that a man working at the mill could go to his store at night and cash his check. Because he knew he was going to get that money because people were going to come and buy groceries. So he always went to the bank on Friday night or whatever it was and drew out enough money to put in his safe so he could play banker. So he kind of helped people along. Then I went to work at the sawmill for John Snoggle. And after I got hurt out there, I didn't do anything for a year, and then I went to work for the garbage company when Frank Shaw had it. Yeah, I think Jason's back in town.
Right.
He's got little kids that go to school here. And then after that, I kind of went to work for Kenny Waldo, and we built boat trailers and done a little welding and went up in the woods and worked on logging equipment. And then we got into the snow plowing business because after the boat building episode, we built enough trailers that everybody had a trailer for their fishing. And we went into snow plowing. We started out with a Chevrolet pickup truck and a 610 Bobcat. And I can remember on real bad snow days, after our rock got big enough, I'd spend 18 hours a day in a Bobcat. I'd start at 2 o'clock in the morning. Vince Hansen on the hill above Pete's Saw Shop was the last driveway I did, and I would finish him up at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. Sleep 2 hours, get up and start all over again.
Over the years, what changes have you seen come to Haines?
Ooh, a lot. I can remember when the economy was good here. And by economy for you kids, I mean money, lots of money in town. We had 2 sawmills running. We had 2 logging operations in the valley. And we had 5 Jippo operators. Now, a Jippo operator is a logger, a little guy that logs for a living, that sells timber to the mills or wherever he can. And we had 5 of those. We had 5 little guys out there with logging. And then things started happening. The greenies, I call them, moved to town. And what happened basically was Okay, we couldn't raft our logs up from the lower islands. They got on that. Logs were a hazard in the water, the bark was in the water, this was wrong, that was wrong. So eventually, John Snobble said, well, okay, we don't have to raft them, we got enough, we have enough barges, we'll barge our logs. So he did that for 4 or 5 years, I believe, and they got on him about that because the bark was falling in the water off the rafts. And the tannic acid from the logs wasn't good for this and wasn't good for that. But if you look at nature, when a hemlock or a spruce tree falls in a river or a stream, what do you have? You have tannic acid, because that's what the bark makes. And you can do a little experiment and take a nice shiny sheet of metal and take some fine powdered hemlock bark and put on that metal and spill a cup of coffee on it and wait a few minutes and wipe it away. It'll be black with it, or that bark with it. Haines, as far back as I can remember, if people want to dig for it, Haines has the same amount of history basically that Skagway does, but nobody knows where to go to look for it. I mean, think back when the sailing ships came up Chilkat side. They used to sail clear up past 9 Mile. That's how deep the river was. And Pyramid Harbor was the first cannery on that site. That's where the Dalton Trail actually began. But you never hear anything mentioned in the town. So I think that they could bring the tourists in here, they just don't know how to do it. Skagway's history is right there on Main Street. I can remember when the trains used to run down Broadway. That's back during the gold rush era. See, I'm the last of the gold rush era babies. I got in on the tail end. I told Sam a few years ago, I said, you know, the pack train in Skagway used to be a bar, okay? And about May, 1st of May, the sun would be in the valley and it would be shining against the bar, and they had barrels that they put on Main Street. And the old timers used to sit and talk about back when they first came, and the trials and the errors and the tribulations and the hard times and stuff. And I used to sit down there with them old timers when I was a kid and listen to them stories. And I always thought I wished I had a tape recorder to record all that, because that's history lost. That's all gone. I can't even begin to remember what they talked about.
Okay, I'm Sandy June Dagan, and for many years the children knew me as Teacher Sandy, and this is my 25th year